Hey guys. Tonight, we float down the sun-drenched banks of the Nile, where the breeze hums low, the sandals squish moist with morning dew, and clothes aren't just worn, they're curated, rinsed, and judged. Linen flaps softly against reed racks. A woman scrubs a tunic with natron so vigorously it might squeal. You lean in, trying not to trip over a laundry basket woven with urgency and quiet resentment. Ancient Egyptian laundry isn't a chore, it's practically theology. Linen was their fabric of choice, lightweight, breathable, woven from flax harvested with prayers and mildly passive-aggressive weeding songs. You reach for a tunic, it's soft, slightly dusty, possibly blessed. Someone tells you, clean linen invites good spirits. You nod. Wrinkles attract judgment. You probably won't survive this with modern detergent and a spin cycle. Today's laundry involves elbow grease, river rituals, and prayers whispered over soap substitutes that smell faintly of desperation and goat. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where and when you're tuning in. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trail behind an apprentice laundress who wields a reed spatula like it has opinions. She explains the tiers of linen: ceremonial white reserved for festivals, everyday beige for sand-resistant errands, and the dung-washed variant favored by scribes prone to romantic failure. Each garment's fate depends on its cleanliness. Fringe fact: linen in Egypt was so revered that even mummies got special wraps: long fibers, high thread count, no stains allowed. Linen production centered in cities like Akhmim, where workers spun, bleached, and ironed with heated stones. Historians still argue whether the strict fabric hierarchy reflected religious symbolism or was just fashion gatekeeping with a papyrus budget. You help unload a basket. Inside, a priest's tunic, a child's play sash, and a market vendor's shoulder cloth that smells like cumin and emotional exhaustion. Every item demands respect. Washing is precise. Scrubbing too hard risks fiber damage. Scrubbing too soft attracts criticism. You're shown the middle ground: circular motion, river rhythm, no judgment. You pluck a linen wrap from the pile. It's embroidered with lotus petals, slightly wine-stained. You ask the laundress, "Is it still holy?" She shrugs. "Depends on what spilled." She's poetic and unbothered. As the sun climbs higher, baskets empty. The river beckons. Your tunic, now damp with sweat and awkward effort, joins the line of garments awaiting their Nile baptism. Tomorrow, you wake early, because laundry and gossip start at dawn, and the goats won't stare themselves into submission. You shuffle down a dusty path, bordered by clumps of papyrus and reed baskets that resemble mildly disgruntled flamingos. The Nile glitters ahead, not just a river, but a stage for the day's first drama. It's early, sky painted with peach, sand still considerate beneath your sandals. And here comes the morning routine: splashing, scrubbing, praying, and what appears to be a goat staring contest between two laundry boys. You find your place at the shallows,
where women squat beside flat stones warmed by prior gossip. Each motion is practiced. Wrists flick, tunics twist, water slaps rhythmically. You lean forward, nudging a tunic into the current, joining the choreography of rinses and river rituals. Fringe fact: ancient Egyptians bathed frequently, sometimes twice daily, with cleansing rituals tied to both physical hygiene and spiritual purity. The Nile served not just as a water source, but as a devotional environment. Historians still argue whether daily river routines reflected true religious devotion or were simply practical hygiene camouflaged in ceremony. Your companion hums while scrubbing her sash. The melody references Osiris and particularly stubborn stains. Children splash upstream, laughing between duties. One tosses soap root into the water. It foams gently, releasing a scent somewhere between crushed mint and existential regret. An elder dips his linen wrap slowly, hands steady, eyes closed. It's not washing, it's remembering. You imitate his motions. The water nudges you. Tunic whispers secrets. Nearby, two priests rinse ceremonial garments. Their technique involves no scrubbing, just soaking, then pressing between copper rods with reverence. You ask why. Stains insult gods, one mutters. You blink and decide you're not ready for divine lint. A merchant arrives with her laundry, bundled in woven satchels lined with dried palm fronds. She shares river space grudgingly. You try not to splash her. It's laundry etiquette. No splashing, no singing too loud, no goat-themed jokes during priest laundering. Someone calls for the communal rinse. Everyone dips garments simultaneously. A wave of linen billows like spiritual jellyfish dancing beneath morning light. You pull your tunic close. It's clean-ish. You feel righteous. Tomorrow, you meet natron and clay and learn why scrubbing your shirt with salty sludge might be smarter than you think.
You crouch beside a basket that smells like sand, optimism, and faint panic. Today's toolset includes cleaning agents, but not your usual lavender-scented modern miracles. Ancient Egypt scrubs its garments with natron, silty clay, and botanical concoctions that sound suspicious and feel slightly judgmental on the skin. You grab a fistful of natron. It's dry, grainy, sharp enough to exfoliate your personality. Your tunic lies limp in the shallows, soft linen, now smeared with sweat and ceremonial gravy. You sprinkle natron across the stain. A girl beside you adds crushed soapwort root and pats it gently, as if apologizing in advance. The mixture foams faintly. You begin scrubbing. The texture is abrasive, ambitious, and possibly sentient. Fringe fact: natron, a naturally occurring mix of sodium carbonate decahydrate and sodium bicarbonate, was Egypt's go-to cleaning agent. Used for embalming, deodorizing, and laundry, it held sacred status. Laundry workers prized it for its ability to lift sweat and ritual residue. Historians still argue whether its religious associations influenced its use in everyday cleaning or vice versa. You learn the ratios quickly. 1 handful per foot of tunic, 2 for priest robes, 3 if someone cried in the garment and the tears were dramatic. You mix natron with Nile mud, clay rich in minerals at enough emotional heft to remove wine, figs, or failed flattery. Beside you, a merchant mashes date pits into a paste, combines it with mint and crushed limestone, and calls it stain balm. You try it. The smell implies courage. The result? A faded spill and soft spiritual awakening. You experiment. Dung poultice for blood marks, tamarind pulp to counter fish sauce. Someone whispers that mixing donkey milk with natron removes ink. You wince. You test. It works. Barely. Later, the clay mix doubles as hand scrub, removing dye, bitterness, and one girl's regret about her linen choice. Too porous, she mutters. You nod sagely. You rinse the garment with mild drama. The water turns cloudy, the stain lightens, the natron sighs. Tomorrow, you meet laundry stones and find out why stomping on shirts might be the most emotionally cathartic step of all.
You lean into a smooth, flat stone wedged along the riverbank, a laundry altar warmed by sun and softened by repetition. Your tunic drips with natron residue and poetic regrets. It's time to scrub, not casually, not kindly, with intent, with the rhythm of a civilization that believed in cosmic cleanliness and sandals without drama. You dip the tunic once more, then slap it against the stone. The sound rings clear, like a papyrus editor denying bad metaphors. A girl beside you stomps gently on her wrap in ankle-deep water, swaying slightly. Foot stomping's not random, it's choreography. Tunic folds must align with heel strikes, lest the dirt feel disrespected. Fact fand: ancient Egyptians often used stone slabs or carved wash basins for laundry, paired with stomping techniques passed through families. Archaeologists have uncovered limestone wash platforms near dwellings in workers' quarters at Deir el-Medina. Historians still argue whether these scrubbing methods evolved primarily from practicality or ritual mimicry of harvest stomping. You're handed a soap root bundle. It smells grassy, slightly judgmental. You mash it into a paste, smear it onto the tunic, then resume the stomp. 1, 2, 3, twist. Someone hums. You follow. Now you're part of the laundry rhythm. Nearby, a priest's robe gets folded dramatically, edges crisped, stains pre-weakened. The scrubber adjusts her posture like she's mid-prayer. You dare not interrupt. Even her stomps have theology. Your own tunic begins to lighten. Threads soften, natron recedes. A boy tosses river pebbles into a circle, his version of linen cleansing divination. The outcome? Mild optimism and one dried fig. Washboard politics unfold. A merchant arrives with imported flax, glossier, arrogant, harder to scrub. He demands a smoother stone. The elders frown. Your linen doesn't deserve extra shine, one mutters. You nod. Laundry is not just fabric, it's status management. Someone whispers about a traveling washer who once stomped 7 robes before breakfast. No one believes it, but the myth persists. You rinse slowly. The water curls around the tunic like gentle applause. Your feet tingle. Your stone hums. Maybe. Tomorrow we untangle linen hierarchy and how a wrinkle might earn you spiritual side-eye.
You wrinkle your nose at a linen wrap laid atop a laundromat woven from papyrus and low-stakes curses. The fabric's soft, but not soft enough to escape scrutiny. It's not just laundry day, it's linen ranking time. And your tunic? It's somewhere between acceptable festival wear and this was stored next to onions. You pretend not to notice the elder evaluating it like she's judging Pharaoh's fashion choices. Laundry in Egypt isn't egalitarian. Not all linen gets scrubbed equally. Higher quality garments, longer fibers, tighter weave, priest-approved cut, receive priority placement, gentler soap root mixes, and stones with reputations. Yours ends up near the communal basin, labeled for ordinary wrinkles. Rude, but accurate. Fringe fact: Egyptian linen varied by class and occupation. The most prized linen came from akhmim, woven from fine flax and bleached to ceremonial brightness. Garments with complex pleating or hieroglyphic embroidery required specialized handling. Historians still argue whether laundry ranking was driven by practicality or social spectacle disguised as textile etiquette. You overhear a debate. Two laundry ladies argue over a sash's place in the line. One claims divine embroidery. The other suggests marketplace knockoff. The linen itself remains neutral. Resolution involves stomp intensity. Lighter pressure for respected cloth, medium stomp for merchant grade, full heel assault for scandal-adjacent wraps. Nearby, the scribe's robe earns 5 brushstrokes from a reed spatula. The priest's tunic gets 10, with a prayer whispered between each motion. Your market tunic receives 3 spatula taps and a fig. Generous. A merchant folds her robe along the zodiac chart embroidered into its trim. Apparently, it predicts rinse cycles and sarcasm compatibility. You wonder if astrology governs stain removal. You ask. The laundress says, only during festivals or personal crises. You nod thoughtfully. Linen lines form hierarchy maps. Priestly whites shimmer front row, messenger grays sag in the middle. Festival reds hang slightly smug near the breeze. Someone shifts your tunic leftward. You pretend not to notice. An elder washes a stain from a white cloth. One commentator theorizes it's ceremonial blood stain. Another suggests jam spill. The supervisor smiles mysteriously. Only the gods know the origin of every stain. A goat chews a corner of a middle-ranking wrap. The owner sighs, but accepts fate. Laundry gods play favorites, she says. You finish folding your tunic. Less dusty, slightly self-aware, ready for divine side-eye, or at least a polite nod from the breeze. Tomorrow, we meet priests and how sacred stains demand sacred scrub rituals and 0 comedic timing. You shuffle toward the Nile with a bundle that smells faintly of sandalwood and existential pressure. The linen inside is white, pure, crisp, ready to be judged not just by laundresses, but by gods. Today, you're helping scrub the garments of priests, and suddenly your reed spatula feels inadequate. Sacred laundry requires reverence, precision, and a deep fear of leaving even one stain resembling a heresy. You unfold a tunic.
It shimmers in the light, not sequins or dye, just high thread count righteousness. The head laundress examines it, mutters something about celestial folds, and hands you a special mixture: soap root paste blended with natron, lotus oil, and a pinch of crushed amulet dust. Divinely sanctioned, she says. You nod, trying not to cry from responsibility. Fringe fact: Egyptian priests were expected to maintain extreme cleanliness, bathing multiple times a day, shaving body hair, and wearing freshly laundered linen during temple rituals. Laundering their garments followed specific purification rites. Historians still argue whether these routines were practical hygiene measures or symbolic performances tied to cosmic alignment. You help fill the temple basin. No ordinary Nile water today. This batch was collected at dawn, stirred with myrrh twigs, and blessed twice, once by a priest, once by a particularly opinionated goose. The tunic soaks, the water glistens. Someone hums a hymn in F minor. Scrubbing begins, not with brute force, but gentle circles that feel vaguely devotional. You're told to whisper a phrase with each motion. Ra sees truth in fibers. You do it. The tunic responds by releasing a faint puff of lotus scent. Magic, maybe passive linen therapy. A priest passes, nods solemnly, and drops a sash embroidered with scarabs. It lands in your basin like a dare. You treat it delicately, sprinkling powdered natron and patting with a sacred reed wand. The woman next to you douses a shawl with incense water. The linen shimmers. You sweat. Sacred laundry isn't about stains. It's about spiritual presentation. Wrinkles imply disorder. Smudges suggest moral decay. One scratchy thread, divine side-eye. You rinse slowly. The water runs clear. The linen floats briefly before settling with elegance. Someone nods. Osiris would approve, they say. You beam. Later, you help fold the tunic in ritual alignment. Right over left, lotus pattern facing upward, corners tucked like sacred whispers. The bundle glows in the sunlight, pure, pristine, mildly intimidating. You carry it toward the drying rack, feet light, heart thudding. Tomorrow, you discover that laundry follows astrology here, and some days scrubbing could insult the heavens. You wake to the scent of fresh clay and the low hum of a woman muttering about planetary misalignment. Today's laundry task comes with rules, not just about fabric, but about the stars. Because in ancient Egypt, not every day is fit for washing. Some days offend Ra, others insult Thoth, and at least one is rumored to summon wrinkle demons if you launder ceremonial tunics before midday. You kneel beside a chart scratched into a palm board. Small concentric circles, zodiac glyphs, and stains from prior soap root spills. A priest interprets the sky. Libra rising, no washing with natron today. You nod, press your tunic against clay, and wait respectfully for cosmic approval. Fringe fact: ancient Egyptian calendars included astrological considerations, often tied to lunar phases and deity cycles. Certain days were deemed unlucky for bathing or garment purification, especially among the priesthood. Laundry days were sometimes dictated by temple astrologers. Historians still argue whether these alignments were practical scheduling tools or spiritual theater staged for communal reassurance. Today's neutral laundry window begins at third hour. Before then, you're allowed rinses, but no full scrub unless you wish to flirt with spiritual turbulence. One woman hums a protective chant while gently patting her sash with mint water. Another scribes a detergent formula based on last month's Mercury retrograde. You try not to be intimidated by the drama. Your own tunic, last washed under Scorpio's glare, gets cautious treatment. You sprinkle natron while whispering the hymn of Horus. A breeze picks up. The priest nods. Cosmic approval. You scrub delicately. Children nearby draw constellations in the sand with reed spatulas. One adds a goat. It's unclear whether it's symbolic or just a prank. You play along, sketching Orion with sandals. Midday arrives. The sun high. Laundry resumes fully. No longer forbidden, scrubbing becomes celebratory. Songs rise. One woman folds linen into pyramid shapes, her way of warding off stain reincarnation. Even drying is timed. Tunics hung when Sirius hovers overhead. Apparently, that reduces odor retention and emotional residue from awkward dinner conversations. You pack your cleaned wrap beside a pouch labeled Pisces Rinse. Someone winks. You're now astrologically presentable. Tomorrow, you make stain poultices, strange-smelling mixtures involving donkey milk, clay, and one herb known as the cleanser of regrets.
You hunch over a clay bowl that smells faintly of herbal recklessness and previous culinary mistakes. Inside, you mix a poultice, thick, chalky, and deeply judgmental. Today's mission? Ancient stain removal, which is less like detergent and more like potion brewing. You spoon in donkey milk first. It curdles slightly. The laundress beside you mutters, "Good, it remembers." You pretend to understand. Next, you add Nile clay, earthy, cool, rumored to carry gossip from prior floods. Your fingers stir the mix with a reed spatula carved into the shape of a disgruntled ibis. Someone drops in crushed mint leaves for scent and possible regret mitigation. The result? A paste that looks ominous and smells like soap having an identity crisis. Fringe fact: ancient Egyptian stain removers combined natron, clay, milk, and herbal infusions. Donkey milk featured in several cosmetic and cleansing rituals due to its lactic acid and symbolic purity. Historians still argue whether these recipes were scientifically effective or simply ritualized acts of hope wrapped in strong smells. You test the mix on a wine blotch. The paste clings. You pat gently. A small boy chants a stanza from a laundry blessing scroll. The stain lightens. You rejoice mildly. More ingredients appear. Crushed juniper berries for oil stains. Pomegranate rind for dye fixes. A fragment of indigo cloth to teach the paste color humility. You add everything. The paste threatens sentience. A priest arrives with a tunic streaked in ceremonial incense. You apply paste, tap gently with the spatula, and whisper an apology to Hathor. The priest nods, less patchy, more divine. Your own wrap gets spot treatment. Fig smudge, faint grease, one palm print from a romantic misunderstanding. You apply carefully. Each spot becomes a memory, slightly less dramatic. You rinse with warmed Nile water, stirred counterclockwise for stain reversal. The water steams, the cloth breathes. Your confidence rises like incense. Later, the poultice jar is sealed with beeswax and respect, labeled in hieroglyphs, stain conqueror and mild emotional cleanser. You tuck it into your laundry basket beside the soap root and dignity. Tomorrow, you meet drying racks, woven reed structures with theatrical wind patterns and mild linen judgment.
You tiptoe across a drying courtyard, woven with reed mats, sunlit drama, and judgmental breezes. This space, half laundry zone, half wind poetry, is home to the drying racks. Today, garments drip with cleaned conscience, eager to be stretched, flapped, and occasionally stared at by a goose with strong opinions about drying technique. The racks rise like minimalist temples, simple wood frames strung with twisted papyrus, some crowned with linen braids to invite wind gods. You hang your freshly rinsed tunic carefully, sleeves aligned, fold crease divine, stain patches now proudly faded. Beside you, someone arranges tunics by breeze compatibility. Southwind prefers looser weave, she explains. You nod, pretending to track wind moods. Fringe fact: ancient Egyptians dried clothing on elevated frames or wide baskets, often placing them near reflective surfaces to amplify sunlight. Some used rooftop courtyards with orientation set to maximize sun exposure. Historians still argue whether drying rack placement was mostly practical or influenced by ritual beliefs about solar purification. You learn about wind choreography. Garments angled to catch morning gusts dry faster and retain fewer spiritual complaints. A girl hangs her sash diagonally for aerated virtue, she says. You adjust yours in parallel, hoping for synchronized grace. Drying isn't passive. Each piece must breathe, flutter, resist wrinkles, and avoid bird sabotage. A merchant guards his wrap from sparrow droppings with a fig branch scare device. Effective and mildly poetic. You pat your tunic as the linen stiffens. That clay poultice stain, now just a memory, baked golden by sunlight and optimism. Another laundress applies a mist of herbal water, myrrh, mint, and one drop of essence labeled confidence. She calls it scent sealing. You copy the spray, but go heavy on hibiscus. Regret follows. Wrinkle management begins. Flat stones heated over embers become impromptu irons. Tunics pressed gently, muttered over, possibly flirted with. One elder places 3 tunics between woven mats and sits on them while singing.
You assume this is traditional. Drying etiquette reigns. No touching someone else's flap. No criticizing wind decisions. No sunlocking with emotional accessories. A goat wanders through, sniffs a tunic, walks away unimpressed. You hope your linen earns better reviews tomorrow. Because next up, bleaching drama. And why chasing fabric purity might ignite accidental fashion commentary.
You tilt a shallow clay bowl with deliberate care, watching sunlight dance across its grainy surface. Inside, a heap of crumbly, pale powder that smells like ambition and aged goats. You've reached the powdered cheese stage. Egyptian culinary flair meets laundry snacks, meets mild spiritual complications. This isn't modern Parmesan, it's taku. Chalky, pungent, and revered, like a cousin who always remembers birthdays. You pinch some. It clings to your fingers like secret knowledge. Today's batch is mixed with dried caraway, a touch of salt, and a whisper of mint. You're told to use it sparingly, unless someone insulted your tunic pleats. In that case, pile it high. Fringe fact: ancient Egyptians preserved cheese by drying and powdering it, especially for long-distance trade and temple offerings. It was often crafted from goat or sheep milk and blended with herbs to mask intensity. Historians still argue whether powdered cheese was a pantry essential or more symbolic, used for offerings, rituals, and clever bartering disguised as snacking. You test it on flatbread. It crumbles gently, melts slightly, and tastes like salted thunderclouds with good intentions. Someone hands you a wedge of onion. You nod. It's the official pairing during laundry gossip hours. Nearby, a merchant applies powdered cheese to his tunic, not directly, but via a cloth infusion trick, rumored to repel flies and attract compliments. You watch him press the powder into folds, seal it with crushed lotus, and declare his linen blessed. You try a similar ritual. The smell suggests mild success. Children dip dried figs into bowls of cheese, call it festival flavor. One girl adds dried hibiscus. Her tunic flutters approvingly. You sneak a fig. It tastes like secrets. Cheese's second role, emotional sustenance. After stubborn stains or divine laundry critiques, a scoop of taku recenters your soul. You mix it into millet mash, sprinkle over cumin bread, and hum a linen affirmation chant. At dusk, the cheese jar gets closed with a wax seal etched with a reed symbol meaning stain survivor. You wrap it in palm cloth and tuck it into your laundry basket, beside the natron sachet and the slightly existential spatula. Tomorrow, you meet the medicine bundles, roots, bark, prayers, and remedies for both linen trauma and camel mood swings. You hunch over a reed basket tied with crimson twine and scented like regret cured in sandalwood. Today, you unpack medicine bundles, ancient kits of healing that look less like ointment and more like devotional chaos. Roots, barks, powders, crushed leaves, and one cloth-wrapped ball labeled Camel Recovery Emergency. You blink. Healing here isn't sterile, it's theatrical and mildly judgmental.
Your laundry companion unfolds a packet of dried myrrh bark shaved into spiral curls. For headaches caused by poor folding technique, she explains. You smile nervously. Another bundle releases powdered acacia, meant to soothe burns from enthusiastic charcoal placement. You pat your tunic. It's scorch-free. For now. Fringe fact. Ancient Egyptians practiced medicine as a blend of empirical herbology and spiritual ritual. Caravan healers often carried bundles, including willow bark, pain relief, frankincense resin, and mixtures of natron and honey. These were used for wounds, fevers, and laundry-related emotional trauma. Historians still argue whether these bundles prioritized physical cure or psychological reassurance cloaked in mystical flair. You help grind dried mint into a paste using a small stone bowl whose interior is engraved with spirals and worry lines. You add tamarind pulp to bind it. Mash it into a cream and whisper the incantation for stain displacement and toe recovery. Not medically required, but strongly encouraged. One scroll, tucked into a medicine bundle, reads, "Apply the bark during waning moon, lest the rash develop sarcasm." You consider it advice or poetry or both. The healer prepares an infusion, pomegranate rind, river clay, powdered copper, and a sprig of indigo. You sip it cautiously. The taste is assertive. Your throat tingles. A camel sneezes. Probably unrelated. Bandages include softened linen strips dipped in resin broth. Tunics too worn to wear often get repurposed into strips for ankle sprains or emotional hugs. You fold 3 with focus, label each, and place them in your bundle with quiet pride. Late afternoon brings the storytelling diagnosis. A merchant claims her rash came from jealousy. The healer nods. Confirmed. Apply sass-blocking poultice. Everyone takes notes. Before sundown, medicine bundles are retied. Palm frond bindings, wax-sealed powders, prayers etched into the fibers. You were handed one labeled Emergency Optimism. You tuck it beside your reed spatula and powdered cheese with reverence. Tomorrow you meet the scent satchels, indigo dyes, perfumed oils, and how laundry became identity performed with flair and mild arrogance.
You wade into a sunlit courtyard, veiled in indigo-dyed cloth and audacity. Today, laundry meets identity. Garments whisper allegiance, scent trails imply trade clout, and dye stains your fingers like gossip that doesn't rinse easily. You're handed a sash, deep blue, woven tight, smells like frankincense and emotional ambition. The merchant nods. It says you don't apologize often. You smile. Indigo dominates, extracted from native plants, soaked, fermented, and blessed with songs about trade margins and sibling rivalry. The dye bath simmers in a clay cauldron etched with stars and one very committed fish. You dunk a wrap. It absorbs slowly, darkens deliberately, emerges proud. Your fingernails now suggest rebellion. Fringe fact. Indigo dyeing in Egypt served both aesthetic and symbolic functions. Elite classes preferred deeper blues as signs of prestige. Caravan members often scented their clothing post-dye with oils like sandalwood or crushed kola nut to mark status or clan identity.
Historians still argue whether this flair was spiritual branding or a sophisticated form of trade signaling dressed up as laundry. You pass a perfumer seated beside scrolls and tiny vials. Each vial contains oil blends, rose, tamarind, cedarwood, and one with a label for disagreement resolution. You inhale. Smells like emotional compromise. Your tunic is dabbed with essence. Not too much. Over-perfuming implies desperation or camel bribery. The elder spritzes sandalwood behind your ear. Negotiation scent, she says. You dab a little extra. The breeze flirts. Symbolic garments emerge. Sashes embroidered with clan motifs, tunics stitched in patterns referencing ancestral trade routes. One wrap tells a story via bead placement. 3 trades, 1 betrayal, a minor fig incident. You read it like a novella. Even drying gets dyed. Indigo cloth flutters atop racks positioned toward the northeast wind because it distributes flair with subtlety. You nod, letting your scented linen catch the current. A child ties a perfumed cord around your waist. Now you're official. You believe her. At dusk, garments are folded alongside clay scent beads, rolled gently, stored in indigo-wrapped satchels labeled with palm ink hieroglyphs for respect and mild arrogance. Tomorrow, you unroll scrolls, documents of promise, trade, one overly dramatic genealogy, and laundry records bordering on poetry.
You crouch beside a bundled satchel, sealed with beeswax and mild privacy wishes. Inside, scrolls, rolled bark paper, folded linen slips, and one dramatic genealogy chart whose accuracy depends entirely on personal flair and fig offerings. Today's task isn't laundry, it's documentation. Because every clean tunic deserves paperwork, and every caravan memory wants to be remembered in cramped poetic script. You unroll the first scroll. It smells like tamarind and hope. Written in palm ink, a trade agreement for indigo dye, 3 linen wraps, and optional powdered cheese if the weather behaves. Beside it, a prayer for fabric purity, repeated thrice in cursive so dramatic it almost hums. Fringe fact: ancient Egyptian caravans carried extensive written records, including personal letters, trade contracts, genealogies, and laundry logs. These were penned in hieratic or demotic script, often on papyrus or bark sheets. Some combined magical incantations with inventory lists. Historians still argue whether scroll-keeping was genuine record-keeping or ceremonial performance meant to impress rival merchants and future archaeologists. A merchant unfolds her scroll. It lists her laundry inventory by quality, stain history, and emotional wear. One entry notes, "Tunic worn during minor betrayal." You squint. The wrap still sparkles. She adds a line, "now rinsed with forgiveness." Another scroll charts familial lineage back 9 generations. Farmers, scribes, one soap-root mystic, and a rumored prophet who washed garments with humming rituals. There's a sketch of a camel with unusually judgmental eyes. Interpretive artistry. Scroll etiquette matters. Paper stored in clay jars with cooling herbs. Seals made from melted fig wax, pressed with thumbprint and intent. You seal a laundry list with powdered mint, symbolizing fresh starts and mild scent drama. You're asked to contribute a note. You write about a tunic that felt heavier before rinsing, and how natron made it feel lighter than personal bias. A priest glances over. Good emotional arc, he says. You beam modestly. Later, someone reads an epic scroll about linen lost in a sandstorm, only to be recovered wrapped around a moral epiphany. You're not sure if it's true, but the linen looked pristine. Your own bundle now contains a scroll listing every item you've scrubbed, folded, perfumed, and judged. At the bottom, you draw a reed spatula. Just because.
You ease yourself into a soft patch of Nile-side sand that squishes with yesterday's footnotes and today's gossip potential. Laundry's done for now. Tunic flapping in the breeze, indigo sash scented like sandalwood, and modest ambition. But this stretch of day is no time to nap. It's Nile-side chat hour, where rinsed garments meet rinsed opinions, and every whisper carries the possibility of romance or crocodile misinterpretation. You overhear two washer ladies debate a merchant's new wrap. Too shiny, one says, clearly oiled with desperation. You chuckle. Hide your own wrap beneath the basket. Yours smells assertive. You weren't trying to impress. Probably. A young man swings by, tunic still damp, smile wider than laundry etiquette allows. He compliments your folding technique. You pretend not to blush. He offers a fig. You accept cautiously. This is how romance begins. Folded linen, shared fruit, and 3 layers of social ambiguity. Fringe fact: ancient Egyptian riverside gatherings often doubled as matchmaking zones. Though marriage rituals were formalized through family negotiation, many early sparks flew during communal tasks: laundry, pottery, grain sorting. Historians still argue whether these Nile-side interactions were genuine emotional bonding or strategic flirtation layered inside mundane routines. Your laundry neighbor pulls out a bundle of dried hibiscus petals, sprinkles them over her basket. It invites joy, she says. You consider doing the same, but worry your tunic might misinterpret the gesture. Children reenact laundry gods' arguments using reed spatulas. One assigns a tunic to wrinkle limbo. Another hands out mock perfume trials. You're sentenced to sandalwood with fig forgiveness. Acceptable. A man nearby shares a story of a croc who fell in love with a laundress after catching the scent of her indigo sash. She bathed in tamarind. The beast swooned, refused to bite anyone named after a month. You ask what month. He says, whatever smells like optimism. Later, as shadows stretch long and the linen stiffens with pride, conversation drifts to temple festivals. Garments must be spotless. Those who arrive stained are mocked via lyrical poetry and ostrich impersonations. You practice your folding. You aspire. You tuck a hibiscus-scented note into your basket. Remember to sparkle, but never spill soup on divine laundry days. Tomorrow,
You prepare burial bundles, garments folded for the afterlife, scented for eternity, and tied with quiet promise.
You crouch beside a broad slab carved with funerary motifs, lotus petals, curled serpents, and one goose who looks unexpectedly philosophical. Today is solemn. You're folding linen bundles not for storage, not for trade, but for eternity. Burial laundry. The final layering. A tunic meant to endure millennia of spiritual audits and emotional haikus from the afterlife. You open the basket gently. Inside, white linen, frayed at edges, scented faintly of myrrh, and embroidered with quiet ambition. Your companion unwraps a sash blessed by 3 priests and 1 merchant with excellent folding skills. You smooth the creases. You whisper an apology to the gods for previous laundry indifference. Fringe fact. Ancient Egyptians believed that clean, high-quality linen garments were vital for the afterlife. Mummies were wrapped in multiple layers, sometimes hundreds of meticulously folded strips. Families often packed extra garments for tomb journeys, perfumed and marked with spells. Historians still argue whether these bundles symbolized practical posthumous needs or spiritual metaphors encoded through textile ritual. You dab oil onto the edges, lotus, sandalwood, and 1 drop labeled regret relief. You wrap slowly, fold right over left. Tuck corners like you're sealing promises. Each fold is deliberate, devotional. You hum as you work, not loudly, just enough to signal memory alignment. One woman arranges a bundle with colored thread markers, red for power, blue for truth, yellow for don't let your soul forget to smile. Another sprinkles powdered natron across the bundle, then presses a thumbprint into the cloth. Personal signature meets spiritual GPS. Even tunic layering has meaning. The first sheet touches the heart. The second shields emotion. The third invites divinity. You follow carefully. Your fingers tremble. The linen responds by glowing faintly in the sunlight, probably metaphorically. You place dried fig inside the wrap, not for snacking, for symbolism. Sweetness should linger, you're told. Nearby, burial baskets are sealed, reed lids etched with hieroglyphs. One reads, "May your folds remain unwrinkled across galaxies." You smile. You aspire. Final bundles are tucked into satchels alongside scent beads and 1 scroll detailing garment histories, a wrap used during temple singing, a sash worn in a negotiation turned romantic, a tunic that survived 3 floods and 1 pomegranate spill. You fold your last wrap, quiet, warm, ready.
You sit with the bundle on your lap, still fragrant, soft, folded with memory and a pinch of tamarind. The Nile whispers nearby, not rushing, just humming lullabies about starch and stars. The courtyard quiets. The drying racks sway gently. Your reed spatula rests beside your scrolls. Your fingers remember every rents, every stomp, every wrinkle reconsidered. Sand settles around you like a soft quilt. The breeze tugs at your sash, polite, sleepy. A goat snuffles once. Even it seems reflective. Your garments now folded for eternity breathe gently in their woven basket beds. You glance up. The stars blink awake.
Somewhere in that sky, linen floats across cosmic breezes, pressed, perfumed, spiritually unbothered. You imagine your garments shimmering there, embroidered with all the days you scrubbed and sang and forgot the stain was symbolic. So rest now. You've earned it. Fold your dreams like linen. Add a fig for warmth, a sprig of mint for calm. Tomorrow can unfold itself.